Amelia lay in bed that night, her mind occupied with thoughts and fears. The weight of the secret was crushing, and the idea of breaking the news filled her with dread. Teresa stormed into her room and said, "Remember, the day you decide to tell your father about my little secret and your so-called experiences will be the day you meet your end. Your silence is the only thing keeping you alive. Understand?" Here is the full story. Patrick was on his way to the market, carrying his beautiful daughter, Amelia. As he walked, an elderly woman, Madame Agnes, called out to him, "Patrick, Patrick, please give me 5 minutes of your time." Patrick smiled warmly and replied, "Madame Agnes, I know exactly what you want to talk about, but I'm not ready to take your advice." Madame Agnes interrupted, "I understand how much you loved your wife, and it's heartbreaking how things turned out. But life must go on. Patrick, you should give love another chance." "Thank you, Madame Agnes," Patrick responded. "But I've decided to raise Amelia on my own. I can't imagine bringing another woman into our lives." Madame Agnes, persistent as always, sighed and said, "All right, you can go, but I won't stop reminding you of the realities of life." Patrick smiled at her once more and continued on his way to the market. As he walked away, Madame Agnes watched him, shaking her head in concern. Giving in to the pressure from friends and family, 2 years later, Patrick finally got married to a beautiful woman named Teresa. From the moment she stepped into their home, a new warmth filled the air. Teresa's gentle nature and nurturing spirit won over both Patrick and his daughter, Amelia. She was not only a loving wife, but also an attentive mother, always finding ways to make Amelia smile and feel loved. Teresa would often prepare Patrick's favorite meals, filling the house with the aroma of delicious food that reminded him of his childhood. She also introduced new traditions, like family game nights and weekend outings, which brought the family closer together. Patrick was thrilled to see Amelia so happy, and he often found himself laughing more, feeling lighter and more content than he had in years. Every day, Teresa showed him that love could heal and bring joy, making him grateful that he had given love another chance. 6 years later, Teresa had given birth to 2 beautiful daughters, and the household seemed complete. Teresa, who had once been warm and loving towards Amelia, began to treat her coldly. Her attitude shifted, and she became hostile whenever Patrick was not around. She would snap at Amelia for the smallest things, making her feel unwelcome in her own home. But whenever Patrick was at home, Teresa transformed into the perfect stepmother. She would shower Amelia with affection, asking her about her day and helping her with her chores. Patrick, seeing this, was convinced that everything was fine. Amelia, however, knew better. She had tried to tell her father about the change in Teresa's behavior, but he refused to believe her. "What more do you expect from a loving person like Teresa?" he would ask, frustrated with what he saw as his daughter's ingratitude. Amelia would quietly reply, "She's not the same when you're not here, Dad." Each time, Patrick dismissed her concerns, thinking Amelia was just being difficult. 2 years later, Patrick returned home from work with a stack of office files he needed to review. His 3 daughters, eager to be near him, gathered around, each wanting to help in some way. Smiling at their enthusiasm, Patrick decided to make a game of it. He asked each of them to read a section of the files aloud, starting with the youngest and working up to Amelia, the eldest. The younger girls read their parts with ease, giggling as they stumbled over a few big words. But when it was Amelia's turn, Patrick noticed something alarming. She struggled with even the simplest words, stammering and mispronouncing them. Her stepsisters burst into laughter, pointing and teasing her. Amelia's face flushed with embarrassment, and she ran to her room in tears. Patrick's heart sank. He remembered how bright Amelia had always been, how she had consistently excelled in school, bringing home top grades and even winning awards in various competitions. She had always been a source of pride for him. What could have gone wrong? He wondered, deeply troubled. Determined to get to the bottom of it, Patrick left his office early the following week and drove straight to Amelia's school. Upon arrival, he was directed to the principal's office. The principal greeted him warmly, but was surprised when Patrick asked to see Amelia's records. "Mr. Patrick," the principal began cautiously, "you withdrew Amelia from our school 3 years ago, saying you had found a better institution for her. We pleaded with you, but you asked us to respect your decision." Patrick felt the blood drain from his face. "What? I never withdrew her. I wasn't even aware of this." His mind raced as he tried to make sense of it. "What about my 2 younger daughters? Are they still enrolled here?" The principal nodded. "Yes, they're still here, and they're doing quite well." Patrick's heart pounded in his chest. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He asked the principal to keep his visit confidential, not wanting Teresa or his younger daughters to know that he had been there. As he left the office, his thoughts were in turmoil. He realized there was a lot more happening in his home than he had ever imagined, and it was time to uncover the truth. He drove back to his office, his mind racing with questions. On returning home, that night, Patrick decided to approach the matter gently. He brought home some snacks, hoping to create a warm, relaxed atmosphere for the family. As they all gathered in the living room, enjoying the treats and each other's company, Patrick smiled warmly at Amelia. "So, Amelia," he began casually, "how are your studies going? I hope you're doing well in school." Amelia froze for a moment, startled by her father's sudden interest in her education. She glanced nervously at Teresa, whose eyes narrowed slightly. Feeling trapped, Amelia nodded slowly and forced a smile. "Yes, Dad, I'm doing pretty well in my studies, as always." Before Patrick could probe further, Teresa quickly interjected, her tone smooth and reassuring. "Oh, only that she's been a bit playful lately," she said with a gentle smile. "But don't worry, I've scolded her about it, and I've even hired a private tutor to help her prepare for her upcoming exams." Patrick looked at Teresa with gratitude, believing every word she said. "Oh, thank you, my loving wife, for taking such good care of the children," he said, his voice full of appreciation. Teresa smiled sweetly, leaning in closer to Patrick. "I told you from the beginning of our relationship that I would manage the home and take care of the children so you can focus on your work." "Thank you so much, my love. I'm truly grateful for the peace you've brought into my life and the way you've made this house a home." As they continued to chat, Amelia sat quietly, feeling a deep sense of unease. She was too scared to speak up her mind, due to the threat that Teresa had given her. Patrick, on the other hand, felt reassured by Teresa's words, completely unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. Amelia lay in bed that night, her mind occupied with thoughts and fears. The weight of her secret was crushing, and the idea of breaking the news to her once loving father filled her with dread. She sobbed quietly, tears soaking her pillow as she replayed the events of the day over and over in her mind. Determined to finally tell her father the truth, she resolved to wake up earlier than usual to catch him alone in the morning. But as she is having a sound sleep, something strange happened. In the dead of night, Amelia felt a cold hand on her shoulder. She gasped in fear as she saw Teresa standing over her, smiling. Amelia's heart raced. "Mom," she stammered, her voice trembling, I'm sorry if I did anything wrong. Teresa's smile widened. Oh, you've done nothing wrong, dear, she replied. I just came to remind you of the promises we've made to each other. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. She knew exactly what Teresa was talking about, but hearing it spoken out loud filled her with terror. Teresa leaned in closer. Remember, the day you decide to tell your father about my little secret and your so-called experiences will be the day you meet your end. Your silence is the only thing keeping you alive, understand? Amelia's eyes welled up with tears, and she nodded frantically. I promise, I'll never say anything to Dad, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Teresa released a scornful laugh. Good girl, she said mockingly, turning on her heel and leaving the room with a satisfied smile on her face. As the door closed behind Teresa, Amelia felt the walls of her room closing in on her. She sobbed uncontrollably, her earlier resolve crumbling under the weight of Teresa's threat. Any hope of confiding in her father vanished, leaving her trapped in a nightmare she couldn't escape. The next morning, Patrick found Amelia in the kitchen, washing dishes. He approached with a gentle smile and said, Amelia, can you walk with me to the car? I want to talk to you. Amelia quickly dried her hands and followed her father outside, her heart pounding with anticipation. As they walked towards the car, Patrick turned to her, his expression filled with concern. How's school going? Sweetheart, I hope everything is fine. Amelia forced a smile, trying to mask the turmoil inside. Dad, I told you, I'm doing well. My stepmom has been there for me, helping me with everything. I'm really grateful that you chose her to be in our lives. Patrick's face lit up with relief as he heard her words. You've really put my mind at ease, Amelia, he said, pulling her into a warm hug. Go on and get ready for school. I'm so proud of you. Amelia hugged him back tightly, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill. I love you, Dad, she whispered. I love you too, Amelia, Patrick replied, giving her a final squeeze before letting her go. As Amelia walked back to the house, her steps felt heavy. She had just lied to the one person she trusted most in the world, and it tore her apart inside. But the fear of Teresa's threats loomed over her like a dark cloud. 2 days later, Amelia was getting ready to head out when Teresa called her from the other room. Amelia, you're not going out today. I've arranged for you to stay home. I'm expecting a special guest, and I need you to prepare a meal for him. Amelia nodded. Okay, Mom. Is it Uncle Charles that's coming? Teresa answered, Yes, your dad called me a while ago that he would be away for 2 days, so I invited Uncle Charles to pay us a visit. Amelia gave a brief smile. Wow, it's been a long time since Uncle slept in our house. What should I prepare for him? I was thinking of making something a bit different from what we usually have. Teresa smiled and replied, The driver will be back from the market soon with the ingredients. I'd like you to make the same dish you prepared for your father the other night. It was so delicious that Patrick thought I had made it myself, and he even gave me a special gift for it. Hours later, Uncle Charles arrived. Teresa rushed to greet him with open arms, her face alight with excitement. Charles, I've missed you so much. How was your trip? Charles embraced her warmly. I missed you too, darling. The trip was good. How are our children doing? Teresa smiled. Clara and Joan are thriving, and Patrick is working hard to secure a bright future for us all. Charles sighed, a hint of impatience in his voice. I'm growing more eager for this arrangement to come to an end. I want to be with you and our daughters full time. They only know me as their uncle, not as their real father. As their conversation continued, Amelia entered the sitting room with a tray of food. Uncle Charles, the meal is ready. You must be hungry after your journey. Please enjoy the food and relax." Charles looked at Amelia with appreciation. "Thank you, Amelia. It's very kind of you to take such good care of us. You are a professional maid."
Teresa added, "Amelia, that's very thoughtful of you. Thank you for your hospitality."
Amelia beamed with pride, even as she struggled with her own turbulent emotions. Clara and Joan were overjoyed to see Uncle Charles when they returned from school. "Uncle Charles, welcome," they chorused in excitement, rushing over to hug him. Uncle Charles smiled warmly, his face lighting up at the sight of the girls. "I've missed you both so much. How are my favorites girls doing?" "We're fine, Uncle," they responded in unison. Clara, the more inquisitive of the two, tilted her head slightly and asked, "Uncle, why do you always visit us when our father isn't around? If he were here, he would have taken us out for a special treat." Uncle Charles's smile faltered for a brief moment, but he quickly recovered, giving them a gentle smile. "Well, Clara, it's just that my vacation time usually overlaps with your father's work schedule. But don't worry. I'm here to spend time with you too. And that's what really matters. I can see your dad anytime I want." Clara and Joan exchanged happy glances, reassured by his words. Joan, pointing to the box of chocolates he had brought them, chimed in, "Thank you so much for the chocolates, Uncle. They're our favorite." Uncle Charles chuckled. "I'm glad you like them. Joan, I'll always bring you something special whenever I visit." As the girls giggled and chatted, Teresa watched the scene from a distance, a subtle smile on her face as she observed the closeness between Charles and his daughters. 3 days later, as Charles was getting ready to leave the house, Teresa approached him with a sense of urgency in her voice. "Patrick is coming home today, and he could arrive at any moment. You need to hurry up and leave before he gets here," she said, glancing nervously at the door. Charles's face darkened with frustration. "When are we finally going to execute our plan, Teresa? I'm getting really tired of this hide-and-seek game. It's been dragging on for far too long," he snapped, his patience wearing thin. Teresa reached out, placing a calming hand on his arm, trying to soothe his anger. "I understand, Charles. Trust me, I'm just as tired of this situation as you are. But we need to be smart about this. There are some important documents I still need to get my hands on. I recently found out that Patrick owns an estate in one of the neighboring cities. Once I secure those documents, we can take control of everything, do whatever we want with him, and finally walk away from this horrible life for good." Charles's eyes widened in surprise and admiration. "You're even smarter than I thought," he replied. "Fine, I'll wait a little longer. But don't keep me in the dark for much longer, Teresa." As their conversation continued, Amelia, who had been quietly standing at the sitting room, overheard every word, and her curiosity got the better of her. The mention of her father's estate and their cryptic references to a final plan sent shivers down her spine. As soon as Uncle Charles left the house, Teresa turned her attention to Amelia with a stern look. "Amelia," she began, her voice firm, "I want you to go to work today wearing that school uniform. Remember, your dad might be home by the time you get back, so make sure you don't do anything that would make him suspect you haven't been going to school. Do you understand?" Amelia nodded obediently, her heart sinking as she headed towards the exit door. She knew she had to keep up the pretense, but the weight of her secret life was becoming unbearable. Upon arriving at the restaurant, one of the staff members immediately approached her. "Amelia, the manager wants to see you in his office right away," the staffer said with a concerned expression. Amelia's stomach tightened as she made her way to the manager's office. Knocking softly, she stepped inside. "Good afternoon, sir," she greeted, trying to keep her voice steady. The manager looked up from his desk, his face clouded with irritation. "Amelia, you are still in your school uniform. Do you want to put me in trouble? Why didn't you remove your school uniform immediately you stepped in here? And why are you just now showing up to work?" he demanded, barely containing his frustration. "I'm so sorry, sir," Amelia replied quickly. "I would change my dress immediately, sir. It was my mom that delayed me. She needed me to help with some chores at home." The manager sighed, shaking his head. "We nearly lost one of our biggest customers today," he said, his tone still sharp. He ordered the vegetable yam porridge, and when we served it to him, he nearly vomited. It was nothing like the one you usually prepare. "Amelia, you're the best cook we have in the kitchen. We pay your mother well for your services, and we can't afford to have you slacking off like this. Do you understand?" Amelia's eyes filled with guilt as she nodded. "Yes, sir, I'm truly sorry. I promise to do better from now on," she said earnestly, hoping to regain his trust. The manager's expression softened slightly. "See that you do. Amelia, we're counting on you." As she left the office, Amelia felt a wave of relief wash over her. Her colleagues greeted her with warm smiles as she returned to the kitchen, and despite the earlier tension, she felt a bit of comfort in the familiar routine. 6 months later, Amelia's world took another dark turn. One afternoon, while she was quietly cleaning the hallway, she overheard a conversation between Teresa and Uncle Charles that sent chills down her spine. Teresa's voice was filled with excitement as she spoke into the phone, which was on speaker mode. "I have good news for you, Charles. I finally managed to get all the documents for Patrick's estates and company. The only thing left now is for him to sign the final document you sent me. Once he does that, we'll officially become the rightful owners of all his wealth. So, when do we launch our final plan?" Charles's laughter boomed through the phone, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "Ah, my beautiful wife, you've outdone yourself. I can't wait to have you and our daughters back with me. We're so close to becoming the latest multi-billionaires in town. I'll sure update you soon with the next move." Teresa, unable to contain her excitement, responded eagerly, "You can't imagine how wealthy we're about to become, Charles. Our lives are about to change forever. I'll be waiting for your update on the final plan." Amelia, who had been standing just out of sight, felt her heart pound in her chest. She had heard every word clearly because the phone was on speaker. Amelia started her work the next day, feeling unusually downcast, her mind consumed by the dire situation she found herself in. The manager, noticing her worried look, approached her in the kitchen. "Amelia, Chief Ronald will be here today at 12 noon. You know how particular he is about his meals, so please don't disappoint us," he said. Amelia nodded, but her expression remained bleak. "Okay, sir, I'll do my best," she replied, trying to muster some enthusiasm. The manager noticed her lack of energy and asked, "Amelia, are you okay?" She forced a smile. "Yes, sir, I'm fine." Later that day, Chief Ronald, a regular and esteemed customer, specifically requested to meet the cook who had prepared his favorite porridge yam. The manager immediately summoned Amelia to the private dining area. As she approached Chief Ronald, she greeted him warmly. "Good afternoon, sir. My name is Amelia Patrick Oko." Chief Ronald's eyes narrowed in recognition. "Patrick Oko, from this city?" he asked, his voice filled with curiosity. Amelia managed a small smile. "Yes, sir. We live at number 16, Oko Street." Chief Ronald's expression shifted as he connected the dots. "Is your father not the owner of P. Oko Group of Companies?" Yes, he is, Amelia confirmed. Chief Ronald looked perplexed. Then what are you doing here? Working in a restaurant? Amelia smiled faintly, trying to downplay the situation. I'm just putting my skills to work, sir. Chief Ronald wasn't convinced. But shouldn't you be in school? A girl your age should be focused on her education. Hearing this, Amelia could no longer hold back her emotions. She broke down in tears, the weight of her secret too much to bear any longer. Seeing her distress, Chief Ronald's demeanor softened. Tell me everything, my dear, he urged gently. Your father is a very good friend of mine. He's helped me out more times than I can count. Consider me as a father. Let me help you. With tears streaming down her face, Amelia nodded and began to pour out the entire story about how her stepmom stopped her from school 5 years ago, and the sinister plot her stepmother and Uncle Charles had devised to steal her father's wealth. Chief Ronald listened intently, his face growing more serious with every detail. When Amelia finished, he was stunned by the revelation. I can't believe this, he muttered, shaking his head. But don't worry, Amelia, I promise you, I will do everything in my power to help. Your father deserves to know the truth, and I won't let these people get away with what they're planning. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Amelia felt a glimmer of hope and was grateful to Chief Ronald. 2 days later, Teresa was startled by a knock on the gate. She was the only one at home and wasn't expecting any visitors. When she opened the gate, she was surprised to see NEPA officials standing there. What are you doing here? We're on a prepaid meter, she said, a bit suspicious. The two men greeted her politely, and one of them explained, Ma'am, we're here to check your meter and also inspect the electronic appliances in the house. We've been instructed to correct any faulty wiring that could potentially cause a fire, just like the incident at Marco Estate 2 months ago. Teresa hesitated for a moment, then nodded and allowed them into the house. The men methodically went through all the rooms, checking the electrical connections and appliances. After spending several hours conducting their inspections, they assured Teresa that everything was in order and that they had completed their work. Satisfied, Teresa saw them out, feeling relieved that her home was safe. Patrick arrived home earlier than usual, looking utterly exhausted. I need to sleep early tonight, he sighed. I've been overworking myself lately. Teresa quickly served him dinner, adding a glass of alcoholic wine to the meal. This will help you regain your strength quickly, she said with a smile. Patrick, too tired to argue, drank the wine and soon fell into a deep sleep. In the middle of the night, Teresa gently woke him up. Patrick, I need you to sign a document for me, she whispered urgently. Half asleep and groggy from the wine, Patrick mumbled, I can't sign anything right now. I'm not in the right frame of mind. I'll do it in the morning. But Teresa was insistent. I really need this document signed now, she pleaded. It's for updating my marital status, and it requires your signature. My parents are demanding it, and I have to send it to them tonight. Barely conscious and without even understanding the document, Patrick scribbled his signature. As soon as he did, he drifted back into sleep. Teresa, thrilled with her success, quickly snapped a photo of the signed document and sent it to Charles, a triumphant smile on her face. The next morning, as soon as Patrick left the house, Teresa eagerly dialed Charles. Hello, my handsome husband, she greeted. Charles answered with excitement. Hello, my multi-billionaire wife. How are you feeling now that you've secured your new status? Teresa grinned. We did it, Charles. He finally signed the papers. Charles let out a joyful shout. Finally? My family can move in with me, and our children can finally call me father." Teresa, unable to contain her anticipation, asked, "So, when do we end this drama?" Charles sighed, thinking carefully, "Let's wrap it up in a week. I need to move out of this one-room apartment and into a 3-bedroom flat, so our children can have a proper home." "Wow, that sounds perfect," Teresa replied, excitement bubbling in her voice. "I'll send you 3 million today to make it happen." "I love you, baby." "I love you too, my dearest," Charles responded, the two of them savoring the thought of their imminent victory. 4 days later, Teresa called the restaurant manager and requested 2 days off for Amelia. "You can deduct the 2 days' pay from her salary," she added. The manager, sounding concerned, replied, "The pay isn't the issue, madam. Amelia's presence is crucial to our operations. Every time she's absent, we struggle to maintain our usual standards." Teresa pleaded, "I understand, but she needs to be home for these 2 days. I have no other choice." After a brief pause, the manager relented. "All right, madam, we'll do our best to manage without her." The next morning, Amelia woke up early to tackle the mountain of chores that Teresa had piled up for her. She spent the entire day washing clothes, cleaning Teresa's and her daughter's shoes, bags, and even their toys. The following day, Teresa told Clara and Joan not to go to school. Meanwhile, Amelia was busy packing their belongings into different bags. Noticing that her father's car was still in the compound, she asked, "Mom, is Dad at home? All the cars are still here." Teresa quickly shook her head. "No, he left early this morning in a friend's car. He mentioned having some errands to run with his friend." Amelia nodded and continued packing. A few hours later, a truck pulled into the compound, and to her surprise, Uncle Charles was sitting in the passenger seat. Clara and Joan ran up to him excitedly. "Uncle Charles, good to see you again." Clara added, "If you had come earlier, you would have met Dad at home." Uncle Charles, clearly in a hurry, joined the men he'd brought along to load the truck. They packed up all the electronics, couches, mattresses, and everything from the kitchen. Amelia helped with what she could carry, while Clara and Joan kept asking their mother if they were traveling or moving to another house. Uncle Charles, without pausing, replied, "We're moving to a much more beautiful apartment." Clara and Joan hugged him. "Thanks so much, Uncle." As Teresa handed over the keys to Patrick's latest car to Charles, she got into her own vehicle with Clara and Joan, her 2 daughters, seated beside her. "Amelia, open the gate," she commanded, her voice sharp and impatient. Amelia, her eyes brimming with tears, moved towards the gate. She couldn't hold back the overwhelming sadness. Just as Charles was about to drive out and lead the way, 3 police vehicles suddenly pulled into the driveway, blocking their exit. The flashing lights and sirens startled everyone. Teresa, visibly angry, stepped out of the car, demanding, "What is the meaning of this? Who are you looking for? This is my house. You must be mistaken." Ignoring her protests, 4 policemen rushed past her, heading straight into the house. To the guest room, which had been securely locked. They quickly forced open the door and then the bathroom door inside. There, they found Patrick, on the floor and barely conscious, clearly drugged and unable to move.
Without wasting a moment, the police carefully carried him out to the waiting ambulance, which sped off to the hospital.
Teresa, Charles, and the others were left standing in shock, while the police immediately placed them under arrest. A week after the incident, Patrick was discharged from the hospital, and he received a summons to the police station the next day. Chief Ronald was already seated when Patrick and Amelia arrived. As they entered the police office, Amelia could sense her father's tension, but she knew it was time to reveal everything she had endured. Once they were seated, Chief Ronald said, "Amelia, it's time to tell your dad everything." Amelia began to recount her experiences, her voice steady but laced with emotion. "Dad, everything changed when Joan turned 1, 6 years into your marriage with Teresa." Patrick's eyes widened as he listened. "Teresa withdrew me from school 5 years ago and took me to a small local canteen. She asked the owner to teach me how to cook while I worked for her without pay. I started that very day, struggling to keep up with the heavy workload. After 2 years, I had mastered cooking and became proficient at it. She pulled me out of the canteen and secured a job for me as a chef in one of the biggest restaurants in town. At first, the manager and staff didn't want to hire me, saying it was child abuse. But Teresa broke down in tears, begging them to give me the job. She claimed that my work was the only source of income for our family and convinced them to allow me to work. They agreed to let me cook a meal as a test, and the taste of my food won them over. That's how I got the job, and they even placed me on a high salary, but it was all paid directly into Charles' account. I was forced to work long hours, wearing a school uniform to maintain the lie that I was still attending school. Patrick's face grew pale as Amelia continued. "Uncle Charles was always at our house whenever you were out of town. They were not just close. According to their conversation, he is the father of her two daughters, Clara and Joan. Their goal was to rob you of everything, your wealth, your company, your estate. They even manipulated you into signing some documents." Tears welled up in Patrick's eyes as the weight of her words sank in. She paused before continuing. "Teresa threatened to make life unbearable for me and you if I ever speak out. It was only when I met Chief Ronald at the restaurant that I found the courage to speak up. He recognized our family name, and I broke down and told him everything. He promised to help, and that's why the police came just in time." Chief Ronald, who had been silently listening, nodded approvingly. "Patrick, your daughter is incredibly brave. If it were not for her, you might have lost everything and probably your life as well." Patrick turned to Amelia, his voice choked with emotion. "I'm so sorry, Amelia. I should have protected you better. Thank you for saving me, for saving us." Amelia squeezed his hand, a tear slipping down her cheek. "We have each other, Dad. That's what matters now." Patrick, filled with anger and disbelief, demanded to see Teresa and Charles face to face. As soon as Charles entered the room, Patrick stared at him and called out, "Charles, are you really the Charles?" His voice trembled with emotion. Charles, with a calm and unapologetic look, nodded. "Yes, I am, the Charles, Patrick." Patrick shook his head, unable to process the betrayal. "Charles, my stepmother's son. We're blood brothers. We grew up together. I treated you as my own brother, like family. Despite the fact you are not my father's child?" Charles cut in. "When your wife died and you were shattered, you invited me to stay with you. That's when I truly saw your financial worth. Handling some of your business transactions on your behalf opened my eyes to just how much you earned daily." I was astounded. Patrick's face paled as Charles continued. "When Amelia turned 2, I came to her birthday party. That's when I overheard you telling your friends that you were ready to give love another chance because of their pressure. When I returned to my base, I convinced my fiancée to marry you, but under one condition: I would be the real father of all her children. We had a plan. As soon as we got our hands on all your property documents, if you resisted, we'd kill you. If not, we'd just leave you ruined." Patrick's breath hitched in disbelief. You planned all this. Charles nodded. Yes, and I don't see why I'm being treated like a criminal. I simply took from you what I didn't have, by giving you what you lacked. Patrick, is that not a business? Tears streamed down Patrick's face as he stared at Charles. Charles, you did this to me. After everything I have done for you, like my own brother. Charles's expression didn't soften. I owe you no apology, Patrick. My mother, your stepmother, made me promise her on her deathbed that I should ensure you never succeeded more than me. And I swore to her that I would fulfill her wish. Patrick's voice broke. Do you remember how many times I tried to help you? 6 times, Charles. I gave you money, in millions, so you could start your own business. And even when you returned each time saying your business failed, I never complained. Is this how you repay me? Charles nodded coldly. Your generosity was never the point. My focus was my mother's dying wish. She even told me how she poisoned your wife's food at the hospital, which led to her death and made you believed it was complications. Amelia, who had been quietly observing the conversation, suddenly clutched her father's hand tightly, and both of them sprang to her feet, her voice trembling with emotion. Your mother killed my mother. Your own mother killed my mother, and denied me my mother's love and care. And yet you still made your wife marry my father. Ah, I swear, you will pay for this. I would make sure you dearly pay for it. Dad, this is Operation No Mercy. We must fight for my mom. Tears streamed down her face, and Patrick, equally shaken, struggled to make sense of the betrayal. He shook his head slowly, his voice heavy with disbelief and sorrow. I took care of your mother all her life. I was the one who single-handedly financed her burial, and yet this is how you repay me. You and your mother treated me so wrongly. You betrayed my love. Tears flowed freely as the weight of the betrayal settled over them. Chief Ronald, looking emotionally drained, interrupted the tense conversation. 2 days after I met Amelia at the restaurant, he began, I sent one of my men, along with a police officer, to disguise as NEPA officials. Their mission was to install CCTV cameras throughout your house and compound for continuous monitoring. Patrick, I decided not to inform you of the plan, because I knew you were too emotionally overwhelmed to play along. Patrick and Amelia listened intently as Chief Ronald continued. Charles' plan was far more sinister than we initially thought. He intended to kill both you and Amelia. He even brought poison, instructing Teresa to add it to your meal. However, Teresa deviated from the plan. Instead of poisoning you, she drugged you and locked you up in the guest room, hoping that would buy her and Charles time for a clean escape. Chief Ronald took a deep breath. We monitored every movement, heard every conversation. Thanks to that surveillance, we were able to intervene just in time and be of help. Patrick turned to Teresa, pain evident in his voice. And you, Teresa, was this all a game to you? Was it wrong for me to remarry after my wife died? Teresa stood silent, avoiding his gaze. Patrick shook his head slowly and said, Teresa, what did I do wrong? Teresa, who had been quiet, suddenly broke the silence, her voice shaky but determined. Patrick, you need to understand. Charles begged me to marry you. He made me swear that I wouldn't betray him afterward. Patrick and Amelia stared at her as she continued. Teresa's voice gaining strength. My mind has always been with my real husband, Charles, the father of my children. I was even already 1 month pregnant with his child when I married you. Everything was planned from the start. Tears welled up in Patrick's eyes as the weight of her words sank in. Teresa's tone softened, almost pleading. Please, Patrick, Forgive me. I don't want to go to jail. Didn't mean for things to go this far. I just did what Charles asked of me. Patrick shook his head, the pain of betrayal overwhelming him. Teresa, I trusted you. I gave you everything. And you, both of you, destroyed me. Teresa took a step toward him, desperation in her voice. Please, Patrick, I don't want to lose my children. I don't want to go to jail. I did it for my family, you have to understand. But Patrick remained silent, his heart shattered beyond repair. The woman he had loved and respected as a mother, the man he had trusted like a brother, the wife he had given everything to, had conspired against him from the very beginning. 2 weeks later, Charles and Teresa were formally charged in court. Charles received a 15-year prison sentence, while Teresa was sentenced to 10 years of imprisonment with hard labor due to her involvement in the scheme. Following the trial, Amelia and her father, Patrick, decided to travel to the UK to take some time away and recover from the emotional ordeal, giving themselves a chance to rest and start afresh. My quick advice: life's journey is complex and involves many different relationships. Let your presence in someone's life, whether at home, at work, or anywhere else, be a blessing, not a source of harm. Always treat people with kindness and respect. So, my besties, what moral lessons did you take from this story? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below, in your own language. And don't forget to specify your country.